Hi, if you are watching this Zoom recording, this is for October, lesson number 3, and this is on the Greek myth Arachne and Athena. And this is kind of an homage to my spider theme in my classroom. What is an origin story? It's basically the idea that something started. There was a catalyst, something started, the beginning of something happened because of an event or experience. So the myth of Arachne is an ancient Greek origin story about where the first spider came from. So much like the Marvel story of Spider-Man, Peter Parker, his origin when he became Spider-Man happened because he was bitten by a genetically modified radioactive spider, right, in a lab. Um, so in this story, we're going to talk about pride, which we talked about a couple weeks ago, greed with Baucis and Philemon. No, was it greed? No, that was Midas, King Midas in the Golden Touch. With Baucis and Philemon, it was a lack of hospitality. So a couple things in both stories. We are flawed as humans. And the gods in Greek mythology, the gods and goddesses were also flawed. They weren't perfect. So a lot of times, Greek mythology specifically will point to the worst of our flaws. And if you remember correctly, I told you the 7 deadly sins, and greed was number 2. And what could possibly be worse than being greedy? And that number 1 of the 7 deadly sins, the worst of all, is pride. And pride is the downfall of man. In Greek mythology, when someone is prideful, basically it causes their doom and they are despised. So let's look at the definition of prideful. And I can share the screen, but I'm pretty sure you're watching with me. Pride is defined as having too high of an opinion of one's own ability or worth, a feeling of superiority, feeling one is better than others. Okay, you might have someone come to mind. Let me give you the synonyms: insolent, arrogant, boastful, bragging, superior, haughty, disdainful, pretentious. Anyone who's in a superior position, these are your world leaders, often become so prideful. They believe that they have the answers. They believe they're right, whether or not they are or not. Adolf Hitler believed in the supreme Aryan race. He believed to help save Germany, he needed to eradicate the Jews. And that's irrational thinking. It's really interesting. A lot of the Marvel villains have this quality of pride. Think of Thanos in Avengers. He believed that in order to save the planet, killing half the planet was good. And you're thinking, you think killing half the planet will save the rest of the planet? That's really twisted, distorted thinking, but that's really kind of what happens with pride. It's not an attractive quality. So what is the opposite? The opposite of pride is humility, which is defined as a modest opinion or estimate of one's own importance or rank, not proud or believing one is better than others, the absence of vanity or excessive pride. One considers themselves as an equal to others and considers the welfare of others as highly as their own. So if you look at your synonyms for humility: modest, unpretentious, meek, down to earth, unassuming, humility leads to rewards. Look what happened to Baucis and Philemon. They were rewarded. They were given a palace and a wish. So we know that humility is a good thing. So really kind of what happens is we're not either prideful or humble, right? We're kind of somewhere in between. So where is confidence in here? Is confidence a bad thing? Of course not. When confidence becomes arrogance and becomes pride, that's when we've gone too far. So let me give you an example. You know, people who are gifted um, with a specific talent, and it could be athletic, it could be artistic, singing, it could be painting, um, could or could get a big head, could become an egomaniac, thinking they deserve uh, to be famous. I can give you a real life example right now that's going on. Beyonce and Taylor Swift both supported a political candidate and told people to vote for this candidate. I'm not even going to tell you who it is. It doesn't matter. You should never use your fame to tell people what to do. We have a civic responsibility in the United States of America to vote, and it is personal. It is none of anyone's business who you vote for. Um, and I voted today thinking of that, thinking, there are people at these voting sites who are trying to sway your vote. That's kind of prideful. Like you think you have a right to do that, right? No, not when it infringes on someone else. So we can be prideful as athletes. There was a famous basketball player named Dennis Rodman. This is back in the 80s when Michael Jordan played. He was a hothead, bad sport, just really talented player who just believed he was superior, wouldn't pass the ball, wasn't, his coach didn't like him, his teammates didn't like him, the fans booed him. You can't go in there, acting like you're superior to everyone else. It's going to cost you. And that's kind of what happens in this story. So I'm going to kind of go over some basics about Athena and Arachne. By the way, they're both prideful. Neither one of them are actually nice characters, to be honest. One of them's a lot more prideful than the other, but neither are too great. So Arachne is this beautiful maiden who starts out, just from humble beginnings. Her dad is a craftsman. He teaches her how to weave beautiful tapestries. And so her dad basically, she becomes his apprentice. So her dad molds her and shapes her and doesn't realize she has an incredible talent. So she becomes so gifted at weaving exquisite tapestries that people come from far and wide to watch her weave. They say that it's like watching thread come out of her fingertips. So people are mesmerized by her work, mesmerized by what she can do. So she kind of becomes famous. And sometimes what happens when people become famous is they kind of get a big head. Like, I'm all that, I'm superior. Well, and unfortunately, Arachne did. She stopped being humble. The bigger her audiences became, the more she bragged. In ancient times, it was assumed if someone had a gift, especially as one as credible as Arachne's, that these were passed down by the gods. And the problem was she denied the origin of her talent. She didn't even give her dad credit for, teaching her. Nor did she say it was a gift from the gods. She said, it's mine, my talent. I'm good because of me. Whoa. Okay, so that's obviously going to anger a god. And it's going to reach the ears of Athena, which it did. Even when people warned her, hey, don't be saying that out loud. Athena is the goddess of war and wisdom, patron goddess of Athens. She was worshipped for her beauty, her intellect, her craft in the art of warfare, and was known as a beautiful weaver. And like most Greek gods, she was headstrong, fierce. Anybody who crossed her, she dealt with them harshly, severely, punished them. So it's not unheard of for a god to punish. Do you remember Baucis and Philemon? What happened to the Frisians who didn't open the doors to the weary travelers? Yeah. Okay, so here in this kind of one version of the story, this is not the story I'm going to read. Gods were crafty in nature and often disguised themselves. And we saw that in Baucis and Philemon. Zeus and Hermes really tested the Frisians to see if they would offer them hospitality, so they disguise themselves. So Athena is going to disguise herself as an old woman to get to the bottom of this. Now, what's significant about that? Well, an old woman should be treated with respect, considered wiser, um, considered worthy of someone's respect. So she asks Athena purposely, where does your great talent come from? Does it come from the gods? And she says, no, my talent has nothing to do with the gods. My talent is because of me. And then she says, well, what about Athena's talent? She goes, my talent, I'll challenge her to a weaving contest. I know I'm better than Athena. So Athena reveals that she is not an old woman. She is, in fact, the goddess. And you just told this. She said, you just said this to my face. Now say it to my face. And she does. She does something worse here, though. When Athena kind of reveals her identity, the rest of the crowd, revering her, as they should, she's a god, kneels. Arachne remains sitting, not giving her reverence, not giving her honor, stood her ground and faced Athena. So that's kind of strike one. Strike two, she challenges Athena. All right, let's see who's better. Let's have a weaving contest. I know I'm better than you. Yeah, that's kind of strike two. You don't challenge a god. Say that you're better. And who should have the advantage here? Athena. Athena has supernatural abilities. So Athena creates a tapestry to honor the great gods on Mount Olympus, portraying them in a powerful way. Her tapestry was woven from the very fabric of the earth as only a goddess could, threads of clouds and blades of grass made for the most stunning pieces of work. It represented the gods in all their spectacular power and glory. So when she reveals her tapestry to the crowd, they're beautiful, right? Arachne's depiction was the complete opposite. So she intended to dishonor the gods and show them in a negative light. Her hands created an intricate and breathtakingly beautiful fabric, but depicted the gods at their worst, drunk and disorderly, abusing their power as some of the fallen Greek gods often did. Okay, so let me give you an analogy, what this is probably like. Facebook today, social media, TikTok, Instagram, you name it. You're not going to present yourself in a negative light. You're going to curate and Photoshop your picture so you look perfect. You're going to only post what you want people to know, which is your highlight reel. And you're going to pick the best photos. That's what people do. I call social media and Facebook fake media. It's fake. If you were to do what Arachne did, you would show what you look like when you first woke up in the morning. You would show what you look like on your worst day, right? Nobody posts that. Nobody would post that. Nobody wants anyone to see them looking their worst. So what she did was really offensive. It was blasphemous. It was like getting a slap in the face. She ridiculed them for their flaws. We all have flaws. We don't want people pointing out our flaws or putting them in a tapestry, right? It's like painting a picture. So Athena has two emotions here: fury, because what she did was audacious. She made fun of the Olympian gods, and she's an Olympian god. But she also was astonished at the tapestry. She could not find a single fault. It was extraordinary work. Unfortunately, though, she couldn't get past how offensive Arachne's depiction was, so she exploded into a violent rage. So I like this version. The one I'm going to read to you is dark. Turning to Arachne, she inflicted her punishment. The color drained from Arachne's face as she felt the beginnings of the great goddess's spiteful curse. So this is in front of all the people. She's shaming her right there. She's just turning her into a spider in front of everybody. She began to sprout legs one after the other. She grew more eyes until she had 8, and eventually Arachne was no longer a beautiful maiden. Athena had turned her into the very first spider. To this day, Arachne continues to weave delicate and intricate works of art on a different level. Okay, so What I did this time, unlike King Midas, week 2, I gave you 2 versions of the story and we compared them. I'm telling you what one of the versions was, and I'm about to read to you, and you should have a copy of this, the version that you have. So please follow along with me. This is one of the versions of Arachne Athena. And I love the dialogue. The ending is a little dark. I'm just going to warn you. But I like the detail. Arachne was a young Lydian woman, daughter of a famous textile dyer called Idmon. When she was a tiny girl, she learned to weave, and immediately her talent showed, even as a novice. As she grew, she kept practicing and working on her craft for years. Her fame spread across the land, and many came to watch her weave. Arachne was such a talented and dedicated weaver that she invented linen. She could weave so well that the images on her fabrics were so perfect, people thought they were real. All the attention, fame, and adoration for her weaving made Arachne's pride soar to the point that she became conceited. When spectators called her talent divine and a gift of the gods, especially of Athena, who was the goddess of weaving, she scoffed at the notion. My talent does not come from the gods, nor Athena. The crowd gasped in horror because insolence in the face of the gods often incurred their wrath. One of her fans urged her to take it back. Ask Athena to forgive your audacity, the fan said, and she might spare you. But Arachne would have none of that. Why would I ask her for forgiveness? She challenged. I'm a better weaver than even her. How could my talent have been her gift, if I'm better? At that, there was a bright light, and Athena appeared before her and the spectators. So in this version, she's not an old woman. Will you say these things to my face, girl? She asked Arachne. Arachne nodded. I will, goddess, and I will prove my words too with my deeds if you wish. We can have a weaving competition. Athena accepted the challenge. The goddess and the mortal sat down to weave. People gathered more and more to watch the wondrous spectacle. The weaving went on for days until finally both Arachne and Athena had produced a tapestry with scenes of the gods on it. Athena's tapestry was the most perfect thing mortal eyes had ever seen. As a goddess, the thread she used came from the fabric of the earth itself. She had depicted the gods at Mount Olympus in all their splendor. Each one of them were shown in glory doing heroic deeds. They were so lifelike that even the clouds in the sky looked three-dimensional and with perfect color. Nobody believed that Arachne could top something so immaculate. But Arachne remained confident, and she unfurled her own tapestry, letting it fall over Athena's in a flurry. The people gasped again because they couldn't believe their eyes. The tapestry was divine. Athena was surprised to see that even though she had used mortal threads, her scenes were vivid and lifelike and powerful. Arachne, too, had depicted the gods in 4 different scenes separated by exquisite dragons, but there was one big difference. Arachne's gods had no glory, no virtue, no kindness. The scenes Arachne chose to depict were scenes where the gods were at their pettiest, their drunkest, their most abusive towards mortals. Alternatively, it said she depicted Zeus and his philandering. That just means cheating. To add insult to injury, the tapestry was flawless, even to Athena's godlike eyes. The detail and complexity of the scenes she depicted were far superior to Athena's, too. And so, Arachne's tapestry was the better of the 2. This surprised Athena and enraged her. Not only was Arachne better than her, but she also had dared to call out the gods and their flaws for all to see. Such insult could not be tolerated. In great terrifying anger, this is different than what I showed you earlier, Athena tore the tapestry to pieces, smashed her loom, and beat Arachne 3 times, cursing her in front of everyone. So she shamed her. Arachne was shocked and ashamed as she ran off in desperation. She couldn't bear what had happened, and so she hangs herself from a tree. That's when Athena turned her into a spider, a hairy small creature with 8 legs that was hanging from a tree by its own web. Now a spider, Arachne immediately scurried up the web and started weaving more. From now on and forever, this is how it will be for you and yours, Athena said. You will forever weave your exquisite works, and people will destroy them when they see them. And this is how spiders were created in the world. So little bit darker version. I 100% agree. This is a cautionary tale. This warns humans to try not to compete with the gods because only their destruction will come of it. It's also a cautionary tale against conceitedness and pride. Even if your talents are extraordinary, if you're full of pride, it will cause your downfall, as it did Arachne's. It shows the oppressive struggle of a defiant rebel against a powerful authority figure. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples, and this is what we did in class. If you're someone who's humble, you're open to others' ideas, you value the opinions of others, you're even willing to have your ideas challenged. You consider someone's point of view, maybe even respect another person's point of view, and you treat others the way you want to be treated. If you're prideful, your idea is number one. People's opinions don't matter to you because you don't care. You're not open to anybody else's challenge or viewpoint, and you'll probably call them names. You're not open to new possibilities because you believe you're right. You don't respect another person's point of view because you believe yours to be superior. You treat others with condescension. So when you think about humility or pride, I did a couple of examples in class. For example, Gregory believes he's the best writer in his creative writing class. He routinely sighs loudly and viciously critiques others' work in his class. Would this be an example of pride or humility? And it's obviously pride. Joseph wins an award for a short documentary film he wrote and directed. In his acceptance speech, he mentions all the other nominees and highlights the other film's merits. This is clearly humility. Terry believes that after having been promoted at work to regional manager, she's able to look down on other employees. Pride. A microbiologist acknowledges that a colleague has deduced a better explanation for horizontal gene transfer than his own explanation. This is humility. So this is going to bring you into your outline today. So just to shake things up a little bit, I'm not going to require any textual references today. No comparison. We're just going to focus on an application. Here's the reality today. We can all be prideful and we can all be humble. So we're going to look at our first body paragraph and we're going to talk about how children today, adolescents and teens, those who choose to act with humility are highly respected by their peers. Let's say you have a captain of your basketball team. And when I was in class, I asked each person, what does humility look like? If you're captain of your basketball team, what would it look like? He would care about the other players, right? He's not a showboat. He's not going to take full credit. He's going to say, well, we won because of a team effort, because everyone did their part. If he notices one of his teammates struggling, he's going to take time to address it. And he's going to maybe give him some pointers or maybe extra practice with him. He's probably going to pass the ball and rely on his teammates instead of, keeping the ball to himself. And his coach is going to respect him and his teammates are going to respect him. And they're probably going to win more games. Because if you want to win games, you need a humble captain. You need players who have humility. And I saw that at the Olympics. Let me give you an example. Simone Biles. And if you don't know that name, you must live under a rock. She is considered the GOAT, the greatest of all time of any female gymnast ever in the history of gymnastics. And if you have the name GOAT, you would think you would act prideful. And that's not what I saw at the Summer Olympics. I saw someone who was respectful to her teammates. I saw someone who was respectful to other countries' teammates. Someone beat her at the floor exercise. That was her number one routine. And she actually bowed on the medal stand to her in reverence to her. That's the GOAT. I mean, that's class. That's humility. Contest winners and extracurricular activities should acknowledge the efforts of the other contestants. I can just give you any example of an extracurricular activity, spelling bee, math Olympiad, debate, a speech contest. Let's say it's a spelling bee, hypothetically. And let's say you won. If you want to show humility and everyone says, how'd you win? You must be incredibly smart. If you wanted to show humility, you'd probably say something like, you know what? I just studied really, really hard. My mom and dad helped me for hours. My teacher practiced with me after school. Even my friends would give me practice words. So you could do well too if you worked hard as like I did. That's not taking the credit yourself. That's, saying it was a team effort. It's not just me. And I'm not any smarter than you are. I just worked hard. I just, put my mind to it. You could do it too. Do you see the difference there? And then in academics, okay, y'all know, and I know kids compare grades. Trust me. I have two kids that went all the way through high school and through college. We're done. And I know kids like to say, oh, I got 110 on my project. What'd you get? And we can all agree that's prideful, right? If someone asks you what your grade is, uh, I, I scored really well. Okay, you got a perfect score, didn't you? Well, yeah. Well, gosh, you're just so smart. Well, again, I studied. I worked really hard for that grade. What grade do you want? Okay, what grade did you get? 83. Okay, well, if you want to get 100, I'll study with you. Let's study together and I'll show you how I got my grade. That's humility. So that's what I want you to do. I want you to give me real life examples that show when a person is unassuming and treats others the way they want to be treated, they are respected, they are revered. And this obviously is the perfect scenario. I think you're going to have more fun writing body paragraph number 2. Unfortunately, sometimes a person acts with too much pride, which offends those around them. I think you know what that looks like, y'all. Let's take the same athlete, elite athletes who become arrogant and believe they're better than others. Let's take the same captain. He's going to be a showboat. He's going to say, I'm the best player on the team. Y'all can't win without me, right? He's not going to pass the ball. He's not going to give the team credit. And here's what's going to happen. His teammates are going to turn on him. The coach might even ask him to leave the team because that's going to cause the entire team to go down. You're not going to be on a winning team with that kind of, I don't care how good the athlete is. It doesn't work in any scenario. A teen social media influencer on TikTok who earns sponsorships and free clothes from popular brands puts down her friends who comments about her posts. This is like equivalent to popular kids at school. They are prideful. They will make fun of what you're wearing if they have the latest trend. They will poke fun of you if you, like got something new that day and make you feel inferior. It's not attractive, right? In this particular scenario, if you were to use my example, and you don't have to, anyone who is, popular, whether they influence people on social media or they influence people at school, they're going to make you feel inferior. They're going to try to pick on you and pick on what you're wearing and make fun of you. And that is, we can all agree, horrible, disrespectful. Look at what Arachne did, same kind of thing. Finally, when it comes to that same grade, let's say it's the same thing. I put high school rankings here, top students brag about their grades. Let's say you won the science fair. I did it all myself. Nobody helped me. I worked for hours. It was all me, right? My idea is genius. I know why I won because nobody else idea held a candle to mine. And mom and dad probably had to buy all that, help them, spend endless hours, and they're going to take all the credit because that's what prideful people do. So a person can act superior to others, making peers feel undervalued, and they will be despised. So if you'll notice on the back, and I'm going to go ahead and share the screen before we head out. If you notice the outline. I've given you 3 ideas. I think an athletic idea is pretty good. I've given you kind of a contest idea, an academics idea. Make sure it's relevant to your age, okay? If you're a child or adolescent. And make sure they're not the same. I don't want 3 athletic examples. You could even use the same 3 in the top body paragraph right here and just use the same 3 if you want to do that. It makes it easier and show what prideful behavior looks like. There are two examples. They're just to get you thinking. I don't want you to copy my ideas. Please don't copy my ideas. I really want you to think of your own idea. You can see people are logging on right now looking at that. Okay, so your job is to make a real world application. So no textual references today. The story really is about us, about humans, and it's teaching us a lesson not to be too prideful and to really act with more humility. All right, this concludes lesson 3. Thank you for watching, and please turn in your essay as soon as possible.